Welcome to the program, Megyn Kelly. How are you?
Hey, Glenn. Good to see you.
Oh, good to see you. I didn't know you were going to be on Skype as well. Great. Glad to have you.
But I'll make it for you.
Wow. Thank you. So, Megyn, I watched your interview. I've watched it twice now. I honestly, very rarely do I say there's no question left on the table because I wanted to try to get her, and I think she chose you instead, obviously. But I thought I had some real questions for her. You handled all of them. How did you find her personally?
Well, personally, she was delightful. She was perfectly kind, warm. She's been through the ringer. You could see that too. This is not a woman of great means. And, when I got to her, she had, I think, the night before not hired, she's not paying him, but gotten a lawyer and a PR person for the first time in this whole thing. So she, for the first time, felt a little bit more steady. She's had no protection. And she's out there, she's on a very thin reed and she's getting it from all sides and she's got no team, Glenn. You know what I mean? There's no natural constituency backing her. So she was a little, I don't know if the word's fragile, but maybe just a little unsteady.
So how shocked do you think she was? Because I say this to people all the time. They say, I want to come out and take a stand, or I just want to agree with whatever. And I'll say to people all the time, are you really aware? People don't know, Megyn, unless they've lived your life or my life or Tara's life now, how horrible the media and social media can be. I mean, it is a business of destroying people now.
Oh, yeah. It's
how
brutal.
How shocked was she by that, and what kind of damage has been done to her?
Well, I think she was expecting to have her credibility questioned. You better be if you're going to come out and accuse somebody running for president of something as serious as this. She's no dummy. She understood she was going to take hits in terms of whatever, is she credible? Does the story make sense? But, her bankruptcy got posted online. They're going back to 1993 and looking for, did she bounce a check? It's like, you know what? I put myself through law school and you want to go back and look at my bounced checks, you're going to find a lot of them. It doesn't mean I'm not a credible person. A lot of us were poor when we were in our 20s. And so I think that part of it has been rough. Somebody posted a picture and her address of her daughter, who's, in her 20s. And that's messed up. She's getting death threats over this. It's just, the media is totally irresponsible and people are so nasty and social media is so awful. So I think she's a little rattled, but, all things considered, she was holding it together okay.
So has the Me Too movement changed anything? I mean, if you accuse the right person, it's good. If you accuse the wrong person, it's not. I mean, has it changed anything for women? I mean, because if I were a woman and I had a story to tell, I would be terrified after seeing what's happening to her.
Well, I will say this. I think political accusers, accusers in a political race get it the worst, right? It's like, not that like the Harvey Weinstein accusers had it so great. For God's sake, Rose McGowan had secret agents following her and trying to dupe her. But if you come forward, whether it's Trump, Biden, Roy Moore, as an accuser in an election year, you're going to get it worse because as we've seen with Tara Reade, even constituencies that might naturally support you are now suddenly very suspicious of you. So I think that's rough. But to your question about the Me Too movement, it's done some good. I think there's no question it's done some good in calling attention to the fact that, there is harassment in the workplace. Most women, for most of the time, have just gone along with it because we kind of were told this is how you make it in a man's world. And so just sort of putting that asterisk in people's minds, like this is a thing. And, you should probably at least listen when a woman comes forward and actually putting the idea in women's heads that they can come forward if they have something, all good. But the pendulum, which was over here when it came to women's allegations, like when I was in college back in the early 90s, if you came out with a rape allegation, you were probably going to be dismissed a lot more easily than you would be today. So the pendulum needed to swing. But like so many of these things, we've overcorrected to a point where now the accused, they haven't been getting due process. You can make a single allegation that's unsupported and ruin a guy's career over 30 years. That's not okay either. We got to get to a place where we settle, where the women are taken seriously or the men accusing, they're heard, but due process is afforded to the person being accused. So if
Amen.
Tara Reade is the person who can do that by exposing the hypocrisy of some of the Democrats who have, with the believe all women nonsense, which was never sincere, then she's done good for the country. And, we'll see whether her allegation has impact beyond that.
Okay, so I want to come back to the listening versus believing and the impact on politics and stuff in a second. But I want to go, you just said if you made a rape allegation in the 80s or 90s, you would have been in trouble. And what they probably would have done is slut shamed you. And I noticed a little bit of this with her answers. First, stop wearing short skirts. And she said, I wasn't wearing short skirts. I was just wearing stuff off the rack. But then I thought one of the most uncomfortable things that she said, because I think she knew, and she felt the old slut-shaming kind of thing about her underwear and how, without getting graphic, how Biden gained access. And you could see she was uncomfortable with that because of her mother, and she didn't want to tell her mother that. And that makes sense to me. And it makes sense to me that she wouldn't want to say anything. And it makes sense to me that she understood the slut-shaming thing, that she's asking for it. Look at her skirts.
Well, I'll put my lawyer hat on now and argue it both ways, right? You can say she was uncomfortable having that discussion because she didn't really want to reveal to the world that she was wearing what I think she was saying were crotchless underwear to work at the U.S. Senate because she was supposed to see her boyfriend later, and that was her story. Or you could say she seemed uncomfortable because she wasn't telling the truth, because she had to explain how he could gain access under her skirt so quickly. And there's a belief by some on Capitol Hill that all the women back then in 92, 93 were wearing pantyhose, that it was either an unwritten rule or an actual rule. You had to wear pantyhose in your legs, and therefore Biden couldn't have done this. So that's up to the viewer. I really believe that people, over the course of a 40-minute interview like that, they'll walk away with a good sense as to whether they're seeing a truth teller or not.
Did you see a truth teller or not?
Well, I'm not going to opine on my own personal belief because I want to continue reporting on this case, and I shouldn't choose a side. I mean, I definitely have my own belief, but it's irrelevant.
So is it the Karen person that is not her real name? Can you tell me about, I don't want to know who she is, but tell me about her and why she is important and why she's not comfortable coming out.
Okay, so Karen is by far Tara Reade's best witness. Tara has, a corroborating witness that is far more compelling than anything we saw from Christine Blasey Ford. I mean, far more compelling.
Far more.
I mean, there's no contest. And anybody who tells you differently is lying to you. Karen is the person who was friends with Tara on Capitol Hill and was in Ted Kennedy's office as a young intern at the time. They befriended one another. And Tara told Karen contemporaneously with the alleged assault that it had happened. And according to Karen, Tara's never deviated in a single detail over 30 years about what allegedly happened that day. Now, I've spoken with Karen at length. She's a professional. She's smart. She's on it. You talk to her and you're like, okay, this is a very credible person who's been successful in her life. But at best, what that establishes for Tara is that Tara told Karen this happened. It doesn't prove that it actually happened. And so, you would have to believe there's something a little wacky about Tara, right? That she would back then be making a story like this. But Glenn, that happens sometimes. Sometimes that does happen. I'm not saying it happened here, but people do need to allow for the possibility that Tara did make that up and has been telling witnesses for 30 years because it's a story that somehow meant something to her and she decided to spread it.
So you said to one of my producers, Megyn, that the media's coverage, that it is a haunting case in more ways than one. That's a quote from you. Yeah. Why? What do you mean by that?
Because if it's true, it's deeply disturbing information about Joe Biden. Deeply disturbing. I mean, it's sick. What kind of a man would in passing in a Senate hallway when seeing a young staff assistant sexually assault her, right? If you give her the benefit of the doubt and say, I believe her, do you really want that man as president, right? And if it's not true, then this is sort of one of those situations where you got to ask, what's happened to the country where someone can make an allegation, it can besmirch a former vice president, a former U.S. senator, and all the media now finally is talking about it. And it's just very easy to sort of put that ring around somebody's neck, maybe unfairly. But the number one thing I want to say about the haunting nature of it is it just exposed how false these people who are pretending they're women's advocates are. It upsets me as a woman, as somebody who actually has stood for female empowerment for my entire life. I don't call myself a feminist, but I defy anybody to challenge me on standing up for female empowerment. I've done it and I have a career that proves it. However, the nonsense by these people who were protesting against Brett Kavanaugh, who were vicious against him. I mean, vicious. Mm-hmm. Remember those women who stormed the Capitol and were just calling the worst possible names? The 180 that they have done now that the allegations are against a Democrat trying to take down Trump is disgusting to me. Disgusting.